It was how he was wired. No matter how bleak the scenario, he would never give up. Success was the only outcome he would entertain. But as yet another gale-force blast of frigid air convulsed the helicopter, causing it to swing violently from side to side, he began to have his doubts. Moments later, an alarm began shrieking from the cockpit, and Harvath knew they were in trouble. The pilots, though, were able to regain control. The bird was still swaying, but nowhere near as badly as before. It looked like everything was going to be okay. Then, there was an ear-splitting crack. It sounded as if the helo had been hit by lightning. It was followed by the tail rotor completely shearing off. And as it did, the helicopter began to spiral. They were going down. Chapter 1. Oslo, Tuesday, 72 hours earlier. There was only one problem with summer in Norway. It was too short. Sitting at his favorite outdoor cafe, Harvath raised his face to the sun. The warmth felt good. He felt good. Better than he had in a long time. The last 2 months had been exactly what he had needed. He and Sylvie had bounced between her apartment in the city and the cottage he had rented out on the fjord. It depended on her schedule. As one of the newest deputy directors at the Norwegian Intelligence Service, or NIS for short, she had been pretty busy. Because the commute was easier from the apartment, they usually stayed in Oslo during the week and headed for the fjord on Fridays. That was fine by Harvath. He had enjoyed getting to know the city. There were plenty of museums and cultural sites, not to mention great bars, restaurants, and cafes. Most mornings, if Sylvie didn't have to leave too early, they would go for a run. The lush Akerselva River Trail was a favorite, as was the Ekeberg Sculpture Park. For safety, they always mixed things up, never frequenting the same location 2 days in a row. In addition to running, Harvath had joined a neighborhood gym. When they were at the cottage, he would swim. A lot. The physical activity had been restorative. After losing his wife, he had stopped taking care of himself. But now, the weight he had shed was back. He had returned to his full level of fitness. And while he still consumed alcohol, it wasn't like before. A half-empty bottle of wine could sit in the fridge for days before they finished it off. In a word, he was happy. Really happy. Sylvie was an amazing woman. She was not only beautiful, but smart and talented as hell. To be honest, she was probably smarter and more talented than he was. The only realm in which he was confident that he had her beat was experience. But even then, it was only because she was several years younger. Despite the age difference, however, they shared something very powerful, something that went beyond their physical attraction to each other. Her past was as dark and troubled as his own. They had both been shattered, but in coming together, had found a way to glue their pieces into something better, stronger. Ultimately, what he loved most about her was her sense of humor. It was a sign of how intelligent she was. It was also a coping mechanism. The espionage business could be exceptionally brutal, a fact he knew all too well. Devoid of meaningful relationships, spies often became disillusioned, cynical. Many checked out via booze or other vices, another fact he knew all too well. He had resolved not to allow that to happen to either of them again. He wanted to make Sylvie happy as she made him. Second chances were rare in life. He was determined not to screw this up, which was why mapping out their next step was proving to be difficult. It was one of the best summers he'd ever had. They had squeezed every drop out of it. The cottage had come with a boat, and they had gotten out on the water as often as they could. A few mornings, he had even used it to drive Sylvie to work, dropping her at the dock adjacent to the Thief Hotel, where she'd catch a ride to the office. There had been barbecues and beach parties. A rotating mix of friends from NIS and the CIA's Oslo station had drifted in and out of their lives, both in the city and out on the fjord. It was rare to